in abolishing the oppressive system of indigo plantation. So it was that the workers of Bihar and in other parts of India came to realize the importance of Gandhi's insistence on negotiation instead of confrontation.
Non-violence, far from being a merely negative term, signified love, love that is infinite and abounding, love that is pristine and pure. No doubt, in India there were saints like Gautama Buddha and Mahavira who had preached non-violence, but it was left to Mahatma Gandhi to apply it to the problems that we face in the social, economic, political and international fields.
Considering the terrible plight of the common people, Gandhi decided to defy the imposition of a tax on salt, the basic need of human beings. This led to the famous Salt March to Dandi. This mass movement of people for a cause became symbolic of an entire nation on the march to freedom. Gandhi established an ashram on the banks of the Sabarmati in Gujarat and later shifted to Wardha in Maharashtra. Many visitors from different parts of the world and of course the subcontinent came to visit him. Among them was Khan Abdul Ghaffar Khan, who was later to be known as the Frontier Gandhi. In his own words, "We went every day to Gandhi and joined him at prayers. Once it so happened that the Bhangi threw up his job and ran away. When this was reported to Gandhiji, he said, "Well, let's go with broom and bucket and clean up the place." And so we went and attended to the sanitation. Another thing that impressed me about him was his humorous disposition. He would laugh with all the girls and the boys, the young and the old. He had a great sense of humor. His heart was full of love and concerned in the service of God's children. It was his courteous manner, the simple insistence on freedom without violence, which had an influence on people in different parts of the world who suffered from inequality. An important example was the American Martin Luther King, who said that he was fascinated by Gandhi's idea of refusing to cooperate with an evil system. It was this idea which led to the strengthening of the civil rights movement in America and King's influence with John Kennedy and his government. In the words of King's biographer, both held no public office, yet both exerted more power and gained more adulation than most elected statesmen of their time. Both were charismatic, votaries of nonviolence. Both, ironically, died by the bullet.
We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will they be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. I have a dream.
Martin Luther's widow, Mrs. Coretta King, came to India to receive the Nehru Award for International Understanding on behalf of her late husband. In the same way as Gandhiji began, by refusing to pay tax on salt, Mrs. King says,
"It was a simple act of non-cooperation with a bus company. which refused to acknowledge the basic dignity of Negro citizens. But from that simple act of truth emerged a movement which has had profound implications on the whole of American life and the world in which we live.
This tribute to Satyagraha has much more than a political significance. It has an enduring spiritual significance. We met an American lady who has adopted the name Kamala. She has been the director of the Gandhi Center in Washington since its dedication more than 20 years ago.
Gandhi, in his campaign, when he used the word Satyagraha, perhaps in India you identify it more with the historical freedom movement and with that campaign. Yet Gandhi himself described Satyagraha just in these three expressions: self-purification, self-dedication, and selflessness. So Satyagraha applies today in America and in any other country in those three attributes of the human quest for truth.
As national consciousness spread and Indians began to clamor for freedom, the Congress in 1930 called for Purna Swarajya, total independence. This frightened the votaries of the Raj, and a conference was arranged in London. Gandhi went to England as the sole representative of the Indian National Congress and insisted on the principle of universal franchise. But the Muslim League, together with the Rajas and Nawabs, sabotaged this proposal, and the British got what they wanted: to have separate electorates on the basis of religion and caste. Gandhi was disgusted, but before he returned to India, he spent time with the working class people of Manchester and London. He then went to Switzerland to meet the wise man of the West, as he called Romé Rolland. He told Romé Rolland and his faithful English companion Miraben, and indeed the public of India and the world, I am not conscious of a single experience throughout my 3-month stay in England and Europe that made me feel that after all, East is East and West is West. On the contrary, I have been convinced more than ever that human nature is much the same, no matter under what climate flourishes, and that if you approached people with trust and affection, you would have 10-fold trust and 1,000-fold affection returned to you. This was especially true of the untouchables, the victims of the caste system who could not even draw water from the village well. Gandhi called them Harijans, the children of God. He fought a long and epic battle against the forces of entrenched orthodoxy. He started a weekly journal, the Harijan, dealing with the problems of the depressed classes. When he traveled to collect money for the welfare of the Harijans, it was the poor people who responded with their pitifully small but heartfelt contributions. Gandhi's relentless efforts finally led to some temples being opened to Harijans. In the span of half a lifetime, Gandhi had overturned thousands of years of oppression. Soon Gandhi called for the boycott of all foreign goods, and this led to a nationwide movement which spread like wildfire and reinforced the movement for Swadeshi. When Gandhi was arrested and charged with sedition, the magistrate, a kindly Englishman, referred to the regard in which Indians held him and apologized for having brought him to court. Gandhi told the magistrate that it was his duty to sentence Gandhi in the same way it was Gandhi's duty to fight against inequality of the British Raj. The spinning wheel has been used as a symbol of time passing, but for Gandhi, it was an act of faith in the self-sufficiency of the Indian people. The act of spinning was to him a meditation of oneness of life, of the interdependence of capital and labor, man and nature. He wanted a social order which would secure the greatest good of all, Sarvodaya. He wanted a simple society in which economic progress and social justice would go together. During the First World War, Gandhiji had helplessly watched as nearly 120,000 young Indian men were killed in a war not of their making, a European war, utterly irrelevant to India. When the Second World War broke out, Gandhiji, Nehru, and other national leaders who were against fascism agreed to fight along with the British and the Allied forces. But they insisted that once the war was over, India should be given independence. Independence was to be non-negotiable. Winston Churchill, who once called Gandhiji a naked fakir, refused to countenance this proposition. Gandhi had no choice but to launch the Quit India movement. The nation responded to his call of do or die. Do or die, not with violence, but with ahimsa, non-violent, non-cooperation. Almost all national leaders were lodged in prison. After the war ended, a cabinet mission came from England to meet Indian leaders in Simla. By this time, there was a proposal for partitioning India, and it was bitterly opposed by Gandhiji and a few leaders like Maulana Azad. Gandhi met Jinnah. He pleaded for communal harmony and the prevention of a partition of the great cultural heritage of the subcontinent. Jinnah would not listen. Gandhi pleaded with Wavell, the viceroy, who was sympathetic. However, he was replaced by Mountbatten, who was polite but short-sighted. He refused to accept Gandhi's plea to save the subcontinent from havoc. Eventually, the Indian National Congress accepted the idea of partition, despite the dissenting voices of Gandhiji and Maulana Azad. Mountbatten, the viceroy, then set a date for the birth of the new states of Pakistan and India. On August 15, 1947, when the whole nation was celebrating independence, there was one man sitting alone, sad and dejected, at having allowed his motherland to be torn apart. Delhi was aflame with communal violence. Elsewhere, tempers were running high. Riots broke out in Noakhali in East Bengal. Mahatma Gandhi and Khan Abdul Ghaffar Khan rushed to the riot-afflicted area. Tireless in his pursuit of communal harmony, the pilgrim progressed. His technique of non-violence was on trial. Gandhi undertook a fast unto death to make warring factions realize the futility of communal hatred. He said, "Death to me will be a glorious deliverance, rather than that I should be a helpless witness to the destruction of India." There were hurried consultations between the leaders of various communities. They realized the need to save human lives and to save Gandhi. They took pledge to maintain communal harmony, and Gandhi broke his fast. As Gandhi and Azad had feared,